Before I left to go to England in 2001, a lot of people were telling us that it was amazing, it was all these positive things they spoke about. And this really pushed me to think of going to the United Kingdom. But when I got there, things were different. The amount of work that was there and the type of work that we had to go into was really, really tough. I remember going to these shifts where we used to work at night and sometimes we used to do double shifts. At one time I worked at Amazon, so the work was very tough. At that time I had no option but to just continue working because I was just hoping that things would change. So as time went on, the family grew, got married, got kids, and at this point there was no turning back. I really had to continue working and continue trying to make my move to the United Kingdom work, although it was very, very tough. So I continued working on. After 10 years, that's when I started thinking of starting my own business here and there, teaching people how to design websites and so on. But even then, it wasn't easy. It was very, very difficult. So while all that was happening, there was no point where I was even thinking of Zimbabwe at that point because I had no savings, absolutely no savings. There was nothing that I could do to even set up a business back home. So anyway, as time went on, COVID came and my online business really made a lot of money. In fact, it was so exciting because during the lockdown, all my consultations brought in a lot of money. At that point now, we started thinking of what to do in Zimbabwe, what to buy, and how to really get started with this process. So anyway, the first thing is we decided to buy a house because a lot of the times when we were coming back to Zimbabwe for holidays, I used to go to my in-laws. Sometimes I'd go to my mom's place, but it was too small for me to go with the family. Sometimes we'd do Airbnb. So we decided to buy a house. So the idea with the house was just for me to make sure that we have somewhere to go every time we traveled back to Zimbabwe. So that was in my opinion, a very good move at the time. And then we thought again, well, what are we going to do in retirement? Because just a house is not enough. We needed a way to generate some income. So we bought land. Now, this land was quite expensive because it has deeds. So that was where everything really started. So 2002, I came over here. I was super excited. I was so full of energy because I really thought that, well, things are really going to start working now. From all the calculations I did with the chickens and how much I would make from that, it really made a lot of sense on paper. So that's when I really started to build some structures. So at first I said, you know what, I don't want to spend too much money on permanent structures because, it's really expensive to construct these chicken runs, especially for building big ones. It's very, very expensive. So anyway, we decided to go with the basic wooden cabins as the chicken runs. The next thing in line was for us to buy an incubator because an incubator meant that we could hatch our own chicks and I could even sell some of these chicks. And this also became part of my business plan. So once I had the incubator, all I had to do now was to buy the parent stock, which I did, and the chickens were beautiful. The two choices I went for were black Australorps and Broilers. Now these are very, very good breeds because they do very well in hot climates like obviously Zimbabwe. And these chickens performed very well. I was doing all that by myself. I was coming here, making sure I managed the incubator, making sure that all the chicks were taken. And I learned quite a lot. And to my surprise, it really worked. It really worked. I had close to 1,000 chickens at one point. So while the other ones were growing, we were selling some of them. And we were hatching more, we were selling some. And for a year, things were okay. But it was very, very tough. It wasn't easy. In fact, I was so tired during that first year of running that business that it was just too much. So at that time, my family was in the UK because the plan was if we both came here, the children needed to go to school and there was a lot of logistics that were needed for us to make this work as a family here in Zimbabwe. So my wife and kids had to stay in the United Kingdom until I set everything up on the ground. So after about a year, I was really missing them. So I decided to go back to the United Kingdom for a bit, 2 months, 3 months, and then come back again. So during that time that I decided to go to the UK, it was crazy because I left a manager there to really take care of things. And to an extent, he did a good job. But where I got really disappointed was when I came back for the second time now to Zimbabwe, all the chickens that we left had gone. Basically, I was told that all the chickens died. But we went through all the training together during the year. We had a lot of help. So to be told that all those chickens died, it was very devastating for me. And just the chickens themselves, they were worth almost 10,000, because if you work it out this way, one chicken, especially those road runners, they're quite expensive. So $10 times 1,000 is 10,000. So that was a lot of money. And the plan there was to have a breeding stock. I also wanted to sell some eggs. So all this was really, really, really messed up for me. So what I decided to do, I went to Koma Samson.
As I was talking to the young man
Yes.
and his efforts, I told him, if you look in our video, you'll see there's a 5,000 egg hatch, which we did some road runners with. I want him to have that access to be able to breed and increase his numbers.
Wow. Hey, you have to pay me for that.
Very humble man. I really, really like him. So I went to him to really get some advice on how I could succeed on the farm. So when I went to speak to him, he told me to not just do one thing, but to really venture into broilers, because the land that I had was not enough for me to have those road runners, because at least I was supposed to do grass-fed road runners or pasture raised, but I had no pastures there. So I was feeding these chickens with commercial feed, which he advised that it would be very, very expensive. And the amount of money I was spending on those chickens was just crazy. At one point, I was spending $200 US per week just on feed. It was crazy. But anyways, so he advised me to start broiler chickens, and he laid out a plan for me. And obviously, as someone who is very successful in farming, I took his advice. So I decided to start building the structures. So there's a guy who claimed that he was very good at building these structures, and he would manage it for me. Because remember, while I was here, I got here, there was no money on the ground because all the chickens were dead. I had to continue with my online business while things were also happening at the farm. So I got someone to manage the building of the chicken runs. So I paid for all the bricks, paid for all the cement, so everything was up and running. One day, I'm at home, I get this call and was told that one of the walls of the chicken run collapsed. And I was shocked, because in my mind, how can a wall collapse? It has cement. So I got in my car, rushed to the farm to have a look at what was going on. And to my surprise, I just kicked one of the walls and the whole thing just fell down. I was very devastated, because at that point I realized that it was not strong enough. Let's put it that way. So that to me was very devastating. In fact, it was so difficult for me to take that in, because remember, I'd lost some chickens. And now the fowl runs that I'm building, were not working. So what I then did was I decided to make my own bricks, because I was told that these bricks can be very expensive if you buy them. So if you make your own bricks, then it is good. So there was an anthill on the farm. So these local guys say they were experts and they knew everything to do with making bricks. So I was like, okay, cool. So they started making those bricks. I paid them, and it turns out those bricks were very, very bad. They were in a bad state. And again, that was a letdown. So while we're there at the farm, I realized, okay, we need some source of water. So at this point, you can imagine, I don't have a lot of money, because I'm trying to balance my online business, and I'm also trying to build everything on the ground. So one guy came to me and said, look, we can dig a well for you, and this well will have enough water to water 1 hectare of land. So I was excited. So I was like, okay, if we can do this, then that means I can have some vegetables here while I'm doing the chickens on the other side. So the guy just dug a few meters, and he said, well, I need to get paid. He said he wanted the 500. That's what we had agreed to, $500 US. So that well was badly made, badly dug. So at this point now, again, I'm like, something is not right. Everything is not working well for me. What the hell is going on? So at that point now, I just felt like I had to stop putting a lot of money into this, because if I add all the money that went into all these projects, it was quite a lot. You can imagine, while I've put in all that money, of course I was neglecting other areas, because I had to tell my family to be patient, because the farm thing was going to be successful, and so on. So as time went on, I thought, you know what, since the road runners are gone, maybe I could do the broilers in the cabins where the road runners were. So I tried to give it a shot again at running a business where I'm selling broiler chickens. So at first everything was fine. I was buying 100 chicks a week, sometimes 150. And this was coming out towards the time of November, December. time. And I was also told that during that time, there's a lot of demand for chickens because it's around Christmas time and people are partying and people are at home. So I was super excited. So we started buying all these chicks, making sure that they were going to be ready in time for end of November and December. So we're buying these chickens, we're buying these chicks, we're buying the feed, buying the chicks, buying the feed. And everything was going okay until I realized that majority of the chicks that we bought are those chicks that don't grow. We're feeding them, they're not growing. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? We realized that sometimes when these places that sell chicks, when it comes to very high demand times, they sell rejects. I didn't know this. So these chicks, no matter what we did, they didn't grow. And this was crazy. So, when you run a broiler business, every penny counts because it's very easy to lose money and your profits, it's very easy for the profits to go. So at this time now, these broilers, because they were quite a lot, I decided I wanted to buy a commercial freezer because without the commercial freezer, then after slaughtering, there is no way to put all these chickens. So I saved a bit of money while the chickens were growing. I bought the commercial freezer. It was, they call them I think it's C400, C200, I don't know, but it's the smaller one. So I bought that for $900. So the guy was very fast. I found this guy on the Facebook Marketplace. He was so quick, to come and deliver the thing, and it was working fine. So even agreed to have a 2-part payment. Paid him $450, and then after 2 weeks, I paid him another $450 to make it $900. I was super excited. So now that I had this freezer, I thought to myself, okay, now I can start slaughtering the chickens, put them in the freezer, and pretty much try and sell as much as I can before I run out of the chickens. So when I did that, there was a time now where we had a heat wave, and this heat wave was super crazy. It was really, really bad. So what happened is all the chickens, almost 100 of them, that were in this commercial freezer started going bad. And I was so confused, like, why would the commercial freezer not work? Why is it not freezing all these chickens? Turns out that this commercial freezer was constructed in a very, very cheap way because my neighbor, who is an expert in refrigeration, and he also makes these commercial freezers, he came to have a look at it and he said, look, the way it was constructed was cheap because the pipes that were used were very thin, so they won't make this thing very cold. At that point, I was devastated. I started giving away all the chickens before they went bad. Some of the really bad ones, I had to dig very deep hole to just bury all the chickens because they were really, really bad. So at this point, you can see how devastated I am. I called the guy and I said to him, look, this is the situation. You sold me this thing and it's not doing the job. I'm losing chickens. I'm losing a lot of money. So the guy promised that he was going to reimburse me the chickens that I lost. And then he also said he was going to help me with a blast freezer where I can just take my chickens to the blast freezer and get them frozen there. But that never materialized. The guy was nowhere to be found. So I'm really devastated now. The heat wave passed, so we started slaughtering more chickens. I went online and I found out that after slaughtering these chickens, what we needed to do was to lower the temperatures of these chickens before we put them in the freezer. So we would put a lot of ice blocks in a massive dish. So this is where we kept all the chickens before we put them in the freezer. That worked. It worked really well. And then the electricity started going. Now, I live in an area where the electricity doesn't really go, but when the electricity goes, it goes for a couple of days. In most cases, it is a fault that would have happened. But generally speaking, the electricity doesn't really go. So anyways, here I am now, and the freezer is working, the heat wave is gone, but now we have no electricity. So again, I started losing all the chickens. I started giving them away. I started selling them at discounts. It was terrible. So that's when I decided to save quite a bit of money to have a solar system installed. So now, when it came to the solar system, there was a company locally here that were doing the solar system services. So I approached them and they said, we can do this for you. And we agreed the price. As soon as I paid them, the guys disappeared. Oh my goodness. For 3 days, I kept on calling them, saying to them, listen, you took my money and you said you wanted to fix my solar system. What is going on? I had to plead with them. Can you imagine? I'm a customer. I had to plead with them. Even that didn't work. That's when I said, okay, you know what? I am now going to make a lot of videos about your company and I'm going to expose you for what you've done. That is when they started rushing around. They came, they installed everything at 2 a.m. Can you believe that? At 2 a.m. That's when they were even suggesting to go on top of the roof. And I said, no. You need to come during the day because I don't want my tiles to break because you're working in the night using your your phone light. That doesn't work. So anyway, they came the next day late, fixed it, and at that point now it was working for a bit. And then it turns out that this solar system wasn't powerful enough to run my commercial freezer the way I wanted it. So I had to again start saving quite a bit of money, and I ended up getting a proper solar system. It's a Victron system, and this was about 6,000. But this was a 5 kVA, and this was super powerful now. So we tested everything, and this time I was quite clever because I said, look, I won't pay until I make sure everything is working okay. And they were happy with that because they knew that their system was solid. So anyway, we tested everything was working fine, and I was super, super happy. But at this point, you can imagine I'm now spending 6,000. So everything was going well. I started selling all the chickens. So I was basically selling all these chickens locally here in the neighborhood. But the numbers that I was selling were quite low because I would get 50 chickens sometimes a week, 60 chickens a week. And the money really wasn't, okay, it's enough to survive, okay, but not enough to run as a business. So I went to the drawing board and I started calculating how many chickens I would need. How many chickens I'll need to sell per week for this to become very, very profitable. And it turns out that I had to sell about between 700 and 1,000 every week for me to say, right, I have a strong, solid business which can grow. So at this point now, I thought to myself, really, I'm done, because what else can I do now? I don't have enough structures for me to run this very profitable. And if I run less numbers, I have to pay my farm worker $120 per month. And really the profits are very low. So at this point, as we speak, I've decided to stop all operations at the farm because I really need to focus on saving more money for this to work. Because for me to run this proper business, I need to build more structures. I'm going to need a borehole at the farm. I'm going to need a proper solar system at the farm. I'm also going to need these large commercial freezers, proper ones this time. So all in all, I'm going to need around 20 to 30,000 US dollars. Building these structures, big ones. I also need a proper solar system. I need a borehole done. And I also need the chicks themselves and the feed all bought in advance, because I realized that if I buy chicks and then start, buying the feed here and there, it doesn't really work. I need to have everything in place. So that's where I am at the moment. So I realized something else. When you see people who run these farms and they have all the structures in place, at first it doesn't look very convincing that they could make a lot of money, but I'm starting to respect those farmers that have those big chicken runs, that have a solar system in place, that have a fence, perimeter fence, and they have security dogs. All those things cost money. When I started adding everything up, oh my goodness, farming is a serious business. It's not even a joke. You really need to invest a lot of money. So this idea of, I want to come home and do farming, you really need to think again, because you are going to need quite a lot of money to invest in this farming. Already, if I talk about the amount of money that I've lost, it's sad and it's devastating. But if I look back at everything that happened, I find that, yes, I've lost a lot of money, but it's my fault because, number one, I'm not a farmer. Number two, I was dabbling. I wasn't really 100% into it. Even though I thought I was on top of things, I really wasn't on top of things, because you really have to be educated, about farming for you to make the right decisions, for you to take the farming project to whatever direction you need to take it. So a lot of the things that happened are purely my fault, because even some of the guys I ended up hiring to do work for me, this was me taking shortcuts because I was running out of money. So at the end of the day, I know now that I need to deal with professionals. I need to work with professionals. And I also know that if I really want to make this business successful, I need to have proper structures and I need to invest a lot of money into this business for this to work. It's not going to work if I'm just going to be in and out and not serious about it, because this is how things get stolen. So for those of you that want to come back home here and go into farming, you really need to do your research and you need to work with professionals, agronomists, and anyone who's really, really in the field. If you do it the way I was, more emotional than anything, and I really wanted things to work fast, and I grew too fast because even with the incubator, it has a capacity of producing 500 chicks a week. Now imagine trying to produce 500 chicks a week. Where are you going to put them? I didn't have enough structures. So yeah, if you start too big, it's a recipe for disaster. You need to do things slowly, slowly, and make sure you're growing that business slowly, slowly. And another thing that I learned as well is if you're going to run a business, don't run the business while you're not there. And if you are going to be there, you need to have enough knowledge for you to know what you're doing. Because sometimes you can be there on the ground, but not understand why things are happening the way they are. It's funny because sometimes I had to ask the workers what's going on because I'm really there, but I can't see what is going on. So what's my move now? Well, I can tell you for sure that I'm not giving up because I know where things went wrong and I know where I can fix things. So I am going to come back without a doubt. I want to make sure that everything is in place and see how this goes because the way I saw it, it is very profitable. So I know that this is a business that can thrive. Okay, it's a business that if you do your marketing and you're trustworthy and your chickens, you take really good care of them because there's a lot of dodginess that happens here on the ground. A lot of the chickens that people are eating here are chickens which are fed with steroids, antibiotics, and all that for them to grow fast. But my chickens now, I take my time. I make sure that I reach my 6 weeks and I give them the feed that is required. So as a result, the taste is very good. My chickens, I mean, I know it sounds like I'm beating my own drum here, but a lot of the people that come to buy these chickens, they love them so much because of the taste. So already I know that I passed the taste test. So these are the type of customers which will be loyal because some of them have tasted other type of chickens elsewhere that are massive, but have this smell to them, you know, they don't taste really well, but mine, they love them so much. Even I love my chickens, you know, they really taste well. So if you create a brand that is trustworthy, that is good, you can be successful in business. But don't come over here thinking you're going to get rich quick with any chicken or goat project. What I realized is it's very slow, it's gradual, so you have to do it in your time, and you also have to make sure that you're growing in stages and not just in one go because you get overwhelmed. Is it a reliable business? Of course. People are going to buy chickens no matter what, and people are going to eat. So this is the type of business which I like because I know there'll always be a demand for it. So that's the good side. But as for now, I'm going to take a few steps back from this farm activity. In fact, I think I'm going to go back to the UK and spend a bit of time there, change of environment, because to be honest with what went on over the 2 years, I am mentally drained. I am so tired. I am so fed up. I have no motivation and I have very low energy when it comes to the farm situation. So I'm going to go back to England, change of environment, and just relax. I'm just going to continue on with my online business and continue that until I save enough money for me to come back and really give this a go again and see how that works. So stay tuned. I will be sharing a lot of information here on my channel, my experiences, how things are. And so make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification because by doing so, you'll be notified whenever I release new tutorials. Anyway, guys, I'd also like to thank you so much for your support on my channel. I know I get a lot of comments, you know, some of them not so nice, but you know, it is what it is. But for the most part, for all the for every single one of you guys that share my videos and also take some time out to comment, I really appreciate your help. You are making this channel grow. I really appreciate that. So continue supporting me and let's help each other, motivate each other. And I really want this to be a community where we are learning and helping each other. Okay, so let's try and avoid putting each other down, insulting each other, and let's just try and help each other. Okay, even me, the way I speak on this channel, I don't know everything. Okay, so if there's something that I'm missing that you know that I don't know, please share it with me. You know, I really appreciate that. And I also like the fact that some of you are contacting me via email, offering your help and support. I really appreciate that. So I'm not taking that for granted. So thank you very much. Anyway, guys, I will speak to you soon. In fact, even when I go back to England, I will be doing a lot of tutorial videos and I'll be showing you around and so on. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you soon.